Now, only if there was some brilliant red paint behind that, I'd be a really happy boy. Welcome back to the garage. Good afternoon, everybody. It's about 1:15 or so, day before Thanksgiving, November 20 something. I don't even know what day it is. Day before Thanksgiving, 2018, good enough. And I got the door here, got those little spots of epoxy primer dried up. I'm going to go ahead and block the door out, see how it goes. Concentrate on those areas, at least try to feather in the epoxy spots. Not really concerned for high build primer in those corners. If I've got to build that kind of stuff, I've already lost, I think. But we'll block her out, see how it comes out, and then probably move on to polyester filler on the front valance and getting the Mark II symbol on the boot lid. Door blocked out, same high spots that I had problems with last time, right around the door handle there, this little guy here, this one down here. I hit him with the hammer again. I also have a low spot that's right in here. I don't know if you can see the difference in the paint, but that's the most obvious one that I've got that the sandpaper won't touch. So like I did with the other door, I think I'm going to nail it with a little bit of polyester filler right there, kind of cheat a little bit, and then do another round of build primer. And then just be careful on these spots so don't burn them through. I did take the hammer to them again. I don't know if I just said that or not. But otherwise, I'm happy with the way the door is coming out. A little bit of a spot right here that I might hit also with the polyester filler. Same spots that they've been fighting with, so not doing as good of a job, you know, in the interim. I need to pay a little bit better attention as I'm coming through, but otherwise I'm happy with it. Just got the polyester filler on there, and I obviously will have some left on my little scraping stick here. When I used the plastic ones in the past, they're flexible, obviously, so are the metal ones. But with the plastic ones, you could kind of bend them and that stuff would let go and break away as it cured this, the filler stuff. Not so much on the metal ones, so I learned that the hard way. It took me quite a while to get these things cleaned up. So for the metal ones, if you're using them, and I still recommend them, the things are much nicer than the plastic ones. Clean it up before the stuff cures, or you're going to have a hard time getting the filler off. And by the way, I'm using just lacquer thinner to clean that stuff. So got the filler on there. Like I had said, I used a little tape trick again to try to maintain that crease line. I'm going to take that off here in just a second, let it cure up a little bit more. And while I'm waiting for this, I'm going to set this aside, I think, and get the boot lid out here and start looking at lining it up for putting the rear emblems on. Well, that looks good. Unfortunately, it doesn't line up. So I kind of had my choice here. 2 out of the 3 holes fit. I got a picture here of another Spitfire Mark II. Don't know if it's, sorry about that. Don't know if it's original or not. I can only assume it is, or at least it's close. Just as a reference point. So if I stick the 2 kind of middle ones on and that fits a little awkward, I get a pretty big rake, pretty big angle, I mean, of the emblem. And looking at this picture here, zoom out a little bit here. Looking at that picture, which you can't see very well, it doesn't appear that you're at that hard of an angle. So I think instead what is supposed to happen is it's supposed to be like this. This is an original Mark I boot lid as far as I know. These emblems are sold for both the Mark I and the Mark II, so somebody's wrong here. I doubt that it's the boot lid, but then again, you would think that enough of these would be sold that they would fix that, but then again, maybe not. So I'm going to go ahead with these 2 out of the 3 fitting, drill a new hole for that. And then the Mark II emblem seems to be at a little bit of a rake, but not as much. I've got another close-up shot of this one here, but you can see that the Mark II emblem itself is broken between the K and the 2 there, and that's gonna allow, there's only 2 posts on this thing, so that would allow the whole thing to spin. So it's, I don't know who's correct. Either it's at a little bit of an angle like the M and the K, or it's straight across like the 2, and you can't tell. But looking at this one here, it almost looks like the Mark II is straight across. So that's what I'm going to kind of go with, and just assume that that Mark II is straight across. So now I'm going to take some relative measurements. I've got the 4 here. I know what the 4 is here. I'll measure this one and then try to make it a scale model so that I can mark it out and figure out about where everything is supposed to line up. So I'm going to go ahead and give that a shot and see how it comes out. Setting up a rough little template here. I got the holes poked in that exist, and this looks about to be where the center of the hole is that I'm going to need for the third little spike off of the S of Spitfire. So I line them up, and that guy gets to right about in the center in there. And I've got a little bit of play, so I'm not incredibly concerned if I don't get the hole exactly straight, but obviously I would like to. It's about a 5/32 inch hole. So what I'm going to do is I'll put the little guide punch in there, pop that. I'll drill a little itty bitty pilot hole, and then drill this hole, and then get that emblem in there, and then I'm going to start taking measurements to go off of the picture so I can get that Mark II symbol in there, or the Mark II emblem in there. Alright, so that fits good. A little bit bent, but that fits good. And at about the right angle. And now I'm going to do some measurements and everything and try to equate some, and looking at where the K fall and all that kind of stuff and the distance between everything. Now that I got the 4, I can measure and just essentially make a proportional sit here. And it doesn't really look like the Mark II is angled at all, or if it is, it's very, very minor up. So I'm not going to get too stressed out about it. And it looks like the very top apex of the 2 just about lines up with the little tang of the 4 there. So again, this is going to probably be pretty close to eyeballing it, but we'll see how it goes. So I'm going to use this piece of cardboard and essentially mimic how this sets up, and then hopefully be able to essentially copy that with the hole, put the holes appropriately, and then transfer those holes over to the boot lid. And the reason I'm doing that is because the cardboard will give me something that I can actually plug, you know, the emblems into, where the paper is not going to be able to do that for me. Alright, so I got that piece of cardboard there, that lines up alright. And now all I need to essentially do is do some measurements here. Got my little machine rule here, got the picture. I'll take some measurements. So the distance between the tang of the 4 and the top of the 2 is again about a little bit less than 0.15. So the distance between the tang of the 4 here and the top of the 2, which just about the apex of the 2, which just about line up, is just shy of the distance of the 2 is tall. So I'm going to say that again. The distance between the bottom of the tang of the 4 here and the very top of the 2 here is just about the distance between the entire size of the 2. So I know the entire 2, like I had mentioned, is about 0.8 inches. So we'll take cardboard, take it off now so I can work with it a little bit. Top of the tang of the 4, about 0.8 inches, a little shy of that. Make that mark on there so I know that the top of the 2 should be right about there. And then it looks like the edge of the 4 right here, and this edge of the 4 and this part of the 2 look like they line up. So I'll do a straight line down from there. Alright, so I got my template set up. So I know the top of the 2 should be about there, and then that leading edge of the 2 should be about there. So I'd be looking at something like, just about like that. So we're going to mark that up. Alright, so right now if I have this in about a straight line, perfectly level, the bottom of all the letters, if you can kind of see it, it's pretty subtle, but if you can see the M, this leg of the M looks like it's leaning that way a little bit. So if I, excuse me, if I straighten that out and bring that M almost perfectly vertical here, which means I bring this corner down, that gives me just a slight up break on the Mark II, and that kind of matches what that picture looks like. It doesn't look like it's a perfectly the flat Mark II, so I think I like that. Give it a little bit of an uptake, not as much as the Spitfire one. I'm happy with the way that is, and I'm going to go with that look. So now what I'll do is I'll pop the Mark II out. So now I'll stick the emblem back in here, do a little pencil mark. Now we'll do a reality check and make sure that that looks like it's going to be about right. Try to line up these posts with about the center of my pencil marks. It looks like that'll fit, and that's about what it's going to look like. Right now that little strengthener piece is right behind this hole, so I just need to be a little careful when I drill. Alright, so now this, the plate back there is essentially flush right here, so there's no gap at all. So the holes that I'm drilling are going to be like right in here. So that's going to come all the way through that. That may be a little tricky when I go to put in the little capture things. I don't know what's going to happen there. So one's going to be over here. Hopefully the other one's close enough that I get enough of a peg that I'm not going to, that I can actually attach this thing. That's interesting. Alright, so that's what it looks like. Little bit of an up break, which actually just is about as level with the bottom of the boot lid there. I didn't think about looking at that. Yeah, I guess that's pretty close on that picture. So now you've got this line matching just about that line, and then this guy is kind of by himself. This is bent a little bit. Alright, so that's the finished product. Happy with the way that that looks. And again, I'll have to check out this one down here, and this actually fits real good, nice and tight. I'll have to check this out as far as the posts go. So now the problem is I've got this hole here that I got to fill. Now the question is, do I fill it with weld metal, or do I just fill it with filler? I'll think about that. But anyway, that's how I did that. So I didn't expect to have a problem with that extra hole there, but there you go. And I chose to go up at a little bit less of a rake on the Mark IV based on the picture that I got. All right, there it is. So I'm not going to use weld metal to fill this hole. One, residual heat. I don't want anything to damage and get the paint all messed up in the general area. Two, when I clean that weld area up, like I learned with the side view mirrors, I'm going to make myself a little divot, and it's just something I'm going to have to fill again anyway. So instead, what I'm going to try to do is just use fiberglass filler over top of that. Now that is kind of just a big old hole sinking in there, so I'm going to try to reach behind in that little bracket and get behind there and maybe either put something in there, backing or something like that, to just so that it doesn't just keep snaking through that hole, and give myself some pressure so that I can push in a little bit and get some stuff connected in there. I tried to take all the build primer off, so I'm down to epoxy. I'll put some fiberglass filler on there to give that extra strength on the size of a hole and see how it comes out. Just put a little piece of cardboard in there, jammed in between the boot lid itself and that reinforcement plate. I read a little bit of filler made up on my smallest spoon here. Just get that stuff in there. Alright, not much to that. I can still kind of see the hole, so to speak. Pull that little piece of cardboard out of there. Maybe I'll settle up a little bit. I do expect to have to do probably another one. Hopefully pulling the cardboard out doesn't cause it to come popping out of here. Oh, it might. Yeah, I'll definitely have to be doing another little coat of filler on there. I don't know if you can see it, but it definitely sank in. So I'll just let this cure up, mix up another little itty bitty batch, and sand it down and then go to it. Right now though, I'm going to get the door back over here and sand out that little bit of polyester filler that I put on there and prep that for another round of build primer. So a lot more than just incidental exposed metal there. So the right answer for this is to go back to epoxy primer. So that will be my plan with that. I'm going to get over to the boot lid right there, take care of the little spot of fiberglass filler, sand that down, get another spot of fiberglass on there, and then sand that down. That should do for that. Get the front valance out here and start working on that for polyester filler and sand that down for epoxy. So I'll have two things to go in epoxy and then the boot lid to go into another high build primer. So a little hiccup here, kind of hoping I wouldn't have to do epoxy on this door, but like I said, you can see all that exposed metal there, and that's the right answer. So that's what I'm going to do. Boot lid is cleaned up. Probably do one more wax and grease thing, especially around the door hinges. It looks like I missed some spots there to get the dust out. But got the hole filled completely and smoothed off. That's a funky looking color because it's the fiberglass stuff. It comes out reddish. But otherwise, I'm happy with the way the boot lid looks. So that'll go into build primer. And then the door and the valance sitting over there on top of the Z, the valance will go. And yes, I put it down gently for those that are in love with 240Zs, kind of like I am. Those will go into build primer, excuse me, those will go into epoxy primer. And then I'm kind of don't know what I'm going to do, to tell you the truth, because I got to wait for these to dry out. Maybe I'll try to get the bonnet out here. And it's kind of heavy, obviously. We'll see. Boot lid is in 2 coats of build primer. I didn't mix up as much as I should have, so that, especially that second coat's about half light. So we'll see how it blocks out. I may have wasted my time a little bit and might have to come right back and put another coat on there, a couple coats. But now that's give that a couple more minutes to cure up. I got the front valance in there and the door there. I've got the epoxy primer has been inducing for enough time now, and I've got the gun all cleaned up and switched over to a 1.5 millimeter tip. So I'm going to go ahead and get 2 coats of epoxy primer on here and leave these hanging for the evening, and then we'll get back to blocking out the boot lid and see how that goes. So not sure you can see there, but the crack is back. You can probably see that one. That one's back. But hey, you wonder what caused that to come back? Well, that's because you dropped the door, and when you drop the door and shock it, and your repair's not that great on the cracks come back. So I was painting the door, didn't have it properly suspended, and it dropped. So now I got another dent to fix. It's okay. It's what happens. Lesson learned. I'll move on. Give me another chance to correct those cracks. But I'm going to see what it takes to get a hammer and dolly this right now. And essentially this end of the door here, unfortunately, pretty happy with that door handle. That's now going to be undone. So we'll hammer and dolly work this and see if we can reverse what I did. Alright, well, I may have dodged a little bit of a bullet. Looks a little bit better. Still some lows and highs right here, but I'm not so sure that they weren't already there, because that's, if you can see that, like extra lows right under there is where all the spot welds are for putting the door skin on. Taking the door handle, it still fits pretty flush again, so that's good. Crossed all the sides. A little bit low right there maybe, so I can try to pry that up a little bit. Just stick this guy in here like this and pry up on that side a little bit. But now I'll clean up those cracks. I think what I'm doing with the cracks is essentially just covering the cracks with the weld metal instead of really penetrating. So I may up the amperage a little bit and get in there and really try to get some weld metal in there. I'm not really worried about blowing through in that particular case. So I'm about 10 minutes out of putting a second coat down of epoxy primer, so I might try to hold that off, clean this up, and if I can get this back in epoxy primer like it never happened, that'd be awesome. Unfortunately, I do want to put it up against the car, and it is the driver's side, so I got to put the car out a little bit, and that's going to get a little tricky, but we'll see. Well, I think I got it. I put it up against the car, and the general shape is there. It's kind of hard to perfectly see without actually bolting it up. but a couple other spots, fixed the welds again. A lot more heat this time. This one's got a little hole in it. I'm just going to fill that with some fiberglass. But essentially, I'm going to start the door over, I guess, as far as all the checking it and everything like that. So I kind of expect to have to put some filler in here, just if nothing else, to get those spot welds out of there. But I'm going to go ahead and get second coat on the valance here of epoxy primer, and then get the first coat of epoxy primer on the door. A couple spots on the inside there just for you know, hammer damage. So I'll get that. I got that all sanded down. Hit everything with 60 grit, and in preparation for getting the epoxy back on there. So I'm gonna go ahead and take care of that. Got the first coat of epoxy on the door. Looks all right. Did second coat on the front valance. That thing is not a good place to hang. That's where I was hanging the door, and that clip twisted out of the little hook up there and fell. That was not very intelligent on my part, just not really thinking. The valance is not anywhere near as heavy, but it just spins too much and all that, so I just definitely need to come up with a better solution. So I got the timer running on the door for the second coat. In the meantime, I'm going to go ahead and start blocking out the boot lid. I just kind of started a little bit there, and go with that, get the second coat of epoxy on the door, maybe touch up the valance a little bit, and then call it a night. Much like the door, I'm calling the boot lid done. Happy with the way that it came out, especially the emblems. One little incidental bare metal spot right there. Not going to worry about that. Blocked out the 320. Obviously, I still need to go to 600 wet and all that eventually to prep for paint. But I'm going to file this away next to the other door. And here in a couple minutes, I'll get that second coat of epoxy on the door that I damaged and subsequently, hopefully, rescued. Alright, second coat of epoxy on the door. Definitely going to need some filler. You can see around the, at least I think you might be able to see the craters around the door handle thing where the filler had come off. And on the edge there I can see a crease a little bit, so I'm probably going to have to play with that. But it's kind of back a little bit, I guess, so kind of disappointing that I let myself kind of do that, but, you know, won't do that again, I'll tell you that. Alright everybody, that's definitely enough excitement for me for this evening. Thanks so much for watching. Please leave a comment below and tell me what you think. It's getting cold and windy here. We're supposed to have the coldest Thanksgiving ever, I guess, tomorrow. Polar vortex, global warming, some crazy stuff going on. Anyway, I hope everybody has a wonderful Thanksgiving. I hope you can spend it with family and friends. Please remember our veterans that are out there serving our country who can't be with their families tomorrow, and say a silent prayer for them. Otherwise, I'm out of here. I am going to post this tonight. I might put a little bit of a clickbait for the title, so if you fell for that and you feel disappointed, I apologize. But again, have a happy Thanksgiving. I'll see you guys next time. Cheers.